You're listening to The Real Short Box, a comic book podcast made for geeks by geeks.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to The Real Short Box. I'm Darren. To my right,
I'm Donald.
And to his right, it is Dr. Kevin.
Dr. Green Thumb.
Yes, Dr. Green Thumb.
Dr. Green Thumb.
still working on that proctology degree.
That amongst many other degrees.
All right, excellent. Not really. That's a programmed response. I should never run for political office. Today we're going to be talking about the top 10 independent comic superheroes. Now,
Yes.
Notice I say comic superheroes, not independent films. So please save all your blue is the warmest colors emails for some French person.
Oh my goodness.
Oui.
Oui.
Oh, you gotta go?
Bonsoir.
Hang on, Kevin has to pee.
Bonsoir.
Now, I think what's important to say here is when we say independent comics, we're simply defining those as non-DC, non-Marvel, and non-uber mainstream, if you will. So essentially, like, obviously, you know, that will be a much smaller category, but primarily if we just stick to non-Marvel, non-DC, I think we're going to cover independent comics.
And we sure will.
Now, out of curiosity, before we start, Donald, do you have an independent comic book company that you prefer?
Currently,
That's a good question.
I would say probably Image would be my go-to independent comic book company. They usually have a very nice variety of like fantasy and horror and things like that, science fiction.
Detective.
That I prefer. So
I second that.
yeah, they've put out some good stuff lately. They're doing a lot what Vertigo used to do, to be honest. Mm-hmm. So Image, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. Especially the last 5, even past 10 years even. There's been some really interesting stuff that's come out of Image.
Mm-hmm.
And I myself am a Dark Horse guy. Now, we're going to get right to the list here. We are going to go with our number 10. Kevin, why don't we start off with your number 10? Independent comic superheroes.
Numeral Diaz. Okay. Now, I guess he doesn't necessarily have superpowers per se, but he was a very heroic man. My number 10 is Tyrese from The Walking Dead.
Ooh.
God damn.
Didn't we meet some rendition of Tyrese from The Walking Dead on a little project we did, Mr. Donald?
We did actually meet Mr. Tyrese himself from the television series.
And what's the
Walking
gentleman's
Dead.
name in real life?
That would be Chad Coleman.
Yes,
Yeah.
Chad Coleman, a wonderful actor.
Yeah, and a gentleman on and off set, I would say.
And brutally hilarious, if you ask me.
Well, to work on a show like that, you have to have some
Yeah,
humor.
it's surprising. Like everything he's done, pretty much, except for the Orville, which is his current work. A lot of the stuff he's done in the past, you look at The Wire and The Walking Dead and stuff, and this is some serious work. It's very dramatic, very serious, and he's so funny on off camera. He's so funny, and it's like, man, this guy needs to be doing more comedy. And then he comes out with The Orville, and I was like, okay, that's cool. I like that.
And I prefer him being funny off camera as opposed to the stereotype of the actor who just starts breaking out into song. Now, Kevin, tell us why you like Tyrese.
Tyrese, at one point during the early part of the Walking Dead series, was essentially the second in command to Rick Grimes. He was a loyal soldier. He cared about people. Was really good with melee weapons. He was just an awesome, cool guy who you can rely on. I would call him Mr. Reliable.
He was a very. I would say he was my favorite. He was my favorite. That's why I was a little upset with the direction of the television series, because he didn't have. He was every bit Rick Grimes equal in the comic book.
Mm-hmm.
He was the left hand to Rick's right.
Absolutely.
And they balanced each other very well. And in the television series, it's not necessarily that. It wasn't that case. They made Tyrese more of a follower in a way. I would say.
You see, that's one of the problems when they try to translate things to television or movies. That obviously didn't translate well.
They did not understand his character.
They understand his character. You could tell that the writers didn't understand.
They basically used the character of Morgan as him.
So that was the template, essentially.
So Morgan was closer to that than Tyrese.
Huh, that's very strange.
Very, very strange, yeah.
Donald, who is your number 10?
My number 10 is one that many people probably don't know. He's the Flaming Carrot.
I I've heard of the Flaming
I
Carrot.
like him already.
Yes, created by cartoonist Bob Burden. Title character first appeared in Visions #1. It was back in 1979. Flaming Carrot was seen as a parody of various aspects of the superhero genre. Basically, they compare him oftentimes to Don Quixote,
Ooh.
which I have a personal love for. I was in Man of La Mancha back in college, so Don Quixote is my boy. Burden refers, the guy that created Bob, refers to the character as the world's first surrealist superhero. Flaming Carrot is often noted for his distinctive exclamation of "ut," which is kind of a battle cry in a way, I guess. He'd been published by Aardvark Vanham, Renegade Press, Dark Horse Comics, and even Image Comics, amongst others. He's made some guest stars and cameos in Mirage Studios, Fantagraphics. Mirage, particularly with the Ninja Turtles. They crossed over with him when he was in Dark Horse, and I think he crossed over with them in Mirage. So he's a dude that's wearing a white dress shirt with reddish pants. He's got flipper feet that are green. He's got regular human body aspects, except for his head is a giant carrot, and the stem of the carrot is on fire. So
Wow.
he is the Flaming Carrot. He fights crime, but you would never know that he really did, because most of the time he was just being a goof.
He sounds like something out of Ren and Stimpy, perhaps, or that like mid '90s Nickelodeon days. It just like really bizarre, kind of distorted imagery, to me. But a real quick moment here to pat you guys on the back. I challenge any podcast out there that talks about the topics that we do I want proof that they've been talking about the Flaming Carrot. I'm just really impressed with your guys and your depth. Like, I mean, this is...
It's no joke.
This is why you come here, because you're a real fan, folks. All right.
Flaming Carrot.
All right, my number 10 is Kurr, better known as the Savage Dragon.
Oh, nice.
Created by Eric Larson.
There we go.
Image Comics. First appearance, Graphic Fantasy #1, June 1982. Now, Savage Dragon probably has about 4 different first appearances, if you will, but like the first like time you see him anywhere is in 1982. Now, Eric Larson, who worked for Marvel, I believe.
Yes.
Larson actually created this character in grade school, which he does with a lot of his characters.
It makes
I find
sense.
Fascinating. Yeah. He's a cop who actually mates with humans despite being a dragon. Just let that sink in a little bit.
Also makes sense. Complete sense.
Of course, powers are he heals quickly, regenerates, resistant to fire, super strength. And it kind of like, when I think of Savage Dragon, it reminds me in a way of like an Alien Nation scenario, because he's always partnered up with a human.
You're
and
right.
He's a dragon, and I kind of like it. It's there's a lot there for me, at least.
Yeah, I like the Savage Dragon a lot. So much so that you're going to hear it again.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Kevin, would you mind going into number 9 on your list?
My number 9 is really simple. I have a thing for ninjas, so I like the Valiant Comics character Ninjak.
Ooh.
Hey!
I thought you were going to go with Michael Dudikoff.
You know what? I like Michael Dudikoff. Those first 2
he had
American
his-
Ninja movies were awesome.
If he had his own comic book, you'd be buying it.
I sure would.
Michael Dudikoff, get to it.
You know what's funny? I think it was Sean Bradley, the guy who came after him. What's interesting, he was actually a real martial artist, where Michael Dudikoff wasn't. But yet Michael Dudikoff was more charismatic on the screen than Bradley, which is isn't that interesting?
That'll happen a lot.
That happens a lot.
A friend of mine, one of my coworkers, used to be best friends with Steve Williams, another American Ninja regular.
Yes.
Got that mustache, man.
Hey, in American Ninja, didn't you mention that at one point, Darren, in your, didn't you do a web series?
Oh, of course, American Ninja. I did in Lone Wolf McRae, and the thing is, he's a stable. For me, was Michael Dudikoff. Like, he's one of the stable action heroes of the 1980s, especially ninja-style action films. Anyway, Kevin, please continue.
Just really simple. Ninjak, as you can imagine, is a ninja with abilities. Colin King is the wealthy son of a master spy who was employed by the British government, and his father was killed by a rebel agent named Iwatsu. So, of course, it's kind of a revenge story. I got to go and get those who did my father in. But he has really cool abilities. He's kind of associated with like Bloodshot and a lot of those other characters in Valiant. And he just has a really cool looking costume.
Mm-hmm.
Donald, how about your number 9?
My number 9, I'm going to go to Sweet Sweet Malibu Comics.
Uh-oh.
And I'm going to go with Hard Case.
Yeah.
Everybody should know Hard Case is my favorite. Anybody that knows me anyway. Hard Case was a comic book series. He was written for Malibu Comics. Now, nobody that knows Malibu Comics, we did do a podcast on the history of Malibu Comics. A very good podcast on that. So I highly recommend that if you haven't watched or listened to that podcast, that you do so on iTunes or YouTube. It's very good, very informative. It'll give you a little backstory. But the series was about Tom Hawk, who became one of the first publicly known Ultras. That's their blanket term for superhumans in the Ultraverse, which is what was formed out of Malibu Comics. Hawks was a struggling actor whose luck drastically changed after being struck by what they called a jumpstart effect, which was a burst of energy from this the Entity, which was the ancient alien spaceship responsible for most of the world's super beings. He gained superhuman strength and durability. He realized that he wanted more than short-term success, and so what he did was he met a couple other people that had these powers as well, these other Ultras, and he proposed that they become an Ultra hero team, helping people while bolstering their careers. The others agreed, and they formed a group called the Squad. Now, basically, then at one point they all kind of got killed and died, except for Hard Case, except for Hawks. And then eventually he reformed another group called the Ultra Force, with characters such as Ghoul, which was one of my favorites also, and Prime, and
Prime.
Prototype,
There we go.
and Topaz, and one other lady that I can never remember her name. She was like the Professor Xavier of the group. But it was just an awesome 90s comic filled with shameless 90s action and just over the top.
And they're
It was great.
characters that deserve at least a movie or at least a TV show.
Yep, definitely.
And of course, as we all remember, the 90s was chock filled with comic book films that were independent comic heroes.
You know, I
That's
can
true.
almost guarantee you if DC had bought Malibu
Malibu.
Comics instead of Marvel, we would have already seen these characters. Like, we would have seen them over and over and over again.
It's probably right.
Like, DC doesn't, that I know of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when they bought companies, they didn't shelve them. You know?
That's true.
They kept going with it. Marvel bought CrossGen. Do you see any of those?
Nope.
No. Marvel bought Malibu. And do you see any of those characters anymore?
They buried them.
No, they buried them. Yeah, DC didn't do that, not to my knowledge. So I would have much preferred DC to buy those characters.
Track number 5 on this CD will be called Bitchin' About Marvel. My number 9 is Raymond Garrison, a.k.a. Bloodshot.
Nice.
From Valiant Comics, first appearance, Eternal Warriors number 4, November 1992. Okay, some interesting things about Bloodshot. He has the ability to shoot nuclear energy blasts. Does that sound frightening to anybody? Raise
Yes,
your hand,
it does.
please. He has cyberkinesis, shape-shifting ability, can regenerate, and is a metamorpher due to nanites that were injected into his blood. Now let's explain how cool these nanites are. So the nanites were used, of course, in the iRobot movie to destroy the robot from within. These nanites are basically miniature supercomputers of microscopic size that can basically make him do all the previous things that I had said, such as shape-shifting, regenerating, and so on. This is a man who is constantly looking for people that wiped his memory. He kind of reminds me of Jason Bourne, and if you see any of his photos, his artwork, especially in the early comics, oh my god, this guy just looks hardcore. I'm sorry, I'm a huge fan of Bloodshot. I think he would work in a movie wonderfully. I mean, not even necessarily as a main character, but just put him in a universe somewhere and just watch him go wild.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, what's funny, my number 8 was Bloodshot as well.
Oh, wow.
Now, Darren, you pretty much said it all. He does deserve a movie. In fact, was it Vin Diesel, apparently? I thought something like that was connected
Yes,
to a
Vin
Bloodshot
Diesel
movie.
still is, I believe, connected to that. They did a Ninjak web series thing, and then now they're doing a Bloodshot movie. From what I hear, that's still going to take place.
I hope so,
Which is-
because you know what? That would be really cool to
We
watch.
need our 90s Valiant comics to be worth something. So yes, please make a movie out of it.
Yes, yes, please.
Do it with all those characters, because they need to be worth money.
And for those who have Eternal Warrior number 4, you would very much benefit from that.
Yep. It's still marginal, very available and obtainable. You can get it probably still for $5, $10, maybe $20 at the most. But it's still a very accessible book, so grab it while you can.
All right, Donald, how about we go on to your number 8?
Well, Darren, so funny you mention it. Mine would be the Savage Dragon.
Oh!
Yes.
Not the Savage Garden.
No, not Savage. No, we're not drinking cherry cola or whatever they.
One Chicka Cherry Cola, please.
Yep. Cherry cola. So, like many of Eric Larson's characters, the Savage Dragon, like you said, was created when he was in elementary school. The original dragon, inspired by elements from Captain Marvel, Batman, Speed Racer, and later the Incredible Hulk, differs greatly from the modern incarnation. Basically, he's a police officer in Chicago. I believe it's Chicago, if I'm correct. And he just, if you've ever read the comics, he just gets brutally beaten to hell all the time. He's a bloodied mess. But he just bounces back every time because he's a savage dragon, you know? I remember first being introduced to him when I picked up a comic book I think it was in the Dollar Bin or something in my local comic shop, Grackle Flint Comics, God rest her soul. That was Savage Dragon versus the Megaton Man. And it was this big fight issue, and it was ridiculous. It was just over the top. Megaton Man, if you imagine Superman with muscles on top of muscles on top of muscles on top of muscles, to where it's just gross. That's Megaton Man, and he fought the Savage Dragon.
Kind of like Nuclear Man.
Yeah, kind of like Nuclear Man, but even worse. But yeah, so just to make a long story short, that would be my choice. I liked him when I was in my early teens. Introduced to him. I really enjoyed that character. I had Spawn originally on my list. I took it off because I replaced it with the Savage Dragon.
Okay.
Because Spawn is more popular, yes, but what resonated with me more was the stories in the Savage Dragon. So that's my choice.
Okay, for my number 8, I'm going with Mark Grayson, a.k.a. Invincible.
All right.
All right, through Skybound Entertainment, now also with Image Comics. The original appearance, Tech Jacket #1, November 2002. Invincible is the son of Omni-Man, an extraterrestrial superhero of the Viltrumite race.
Could also be Noble Causes issue, 2 or 3?
Yeah, like 2 or 3.
Yeah. There's a debate on which one
the
is
first
the first appearance. Yeah.
Ah, you see? And
That's okay.
we will let the debate continue. We can run a poll right now on social media.
Let's fight.
What do you think? Okay. All right, and the thing is, he's a superhuman protector of Earth, invulnerable, and this really neat power, this decelerated aging. So essentially, kind of like, you know, I don't know the exact mathematical equation, but let's just say for every year you age, he probably ages a month. And I just think that's a really cool thing, on top of the fact that overall this is kind of a cute, fun little comic, in my opinion. It's not dark, it's not, you know, miserable. It's just, you know, it's neat, and I love the idea of a protector for Earth, you know, who's just, that's his only job is to do that, and he's dedicated his life to it. I don't know, I find Invincible to be very fun and colorful too.
Yeah, he's a fun character, and I'm super stoked that they're going to be making a movie. Ooh. Super stoked about that. The minute they announced it, you couldn't find a first appearance of him. Even Invincible #1, you couldn't find an issue of that anywhere for cheap.
It's a hot book. Hot book.
Hot potato book. So
On
if you
fire.
do happen to stroll across it in a flea market or somebody's yard sale or something, pick it the F up, people. Pick it up.
Pick that up first and then put yourself on a waiting list for a gun, because that thing is going to be valuable, my friends. All right, Kevin, let's get to number 7.
All right, my number 7 is the antithesis to Jason Voorhees. My boy, Arnold Casey Jones.
Oh, shit.
Oh, no.
Good choice.
Casey Jones is freaking awesome.
Raphael.
Yes, when I was like a little kid, just watching him on the cartoon show, and especially in the comic books as well. I mean, he's just an awesome guy. He's hilarious. Dude got the hockey mask. He's carrying all kinds of sports weaponry with him.
And what perfect casting for the movie, too.
Oh, yeah.
That guy was phenomenal.
Elias Cotier, which is what I thought his name was, but it's actually, I worked with him on an episode of House. It's pronounced Elias Koteas.
Koteas.
Really?
Very Greek name.
Oh.
Very Greek name.
Wow.
Yes.
Very.
So back to Casey Jones, Kevin.
I mean, when the Ninja Turtles need an ally, you need just that fifth substitute. Not really fifth substitute, the fifth turtle, so to speak.
Yeah.
Casey Jones is the fifth turtle.
I was so sad when he wasn't in the second movie.
Oh, I know, man.
And then when he came back for the third, that was like the only good thing. I was like, well, at least Casey Jones is in it. You know, that was my go-to. But yeah, he's a cool character.
Yeah.
First appeared in which one? Raphael #1?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, I think it was the miniseries Raphael #1. It was a larger book, too.
Yes, came out in April 1985, released published in 1985.
Yeah, that was one I could not afford, and I still can't to this day, afford the first appearance of Ninja Turtles.
Yes, though a first print, yes.
Right, a first print. But I could afford a first print of Casey Jones's appearance, which was Raphael #1.
Nothing wrong with that. Casey Jones is a righteous man.
You can pick it up for less than $100, guys, so I highly recommend it if you can afford it. It's a good book.
But thankfully, when I was a child, my parents had enough money to afford me a Casey Jones action figure.
Ooh.
Always solid, yeah.
No question. Donald, who's your number 7?
Well, mine would be, you might all know him as Stanley Ipkiss or Jim Carrey, otherwise known as The Mask.
Mask.
Saw about
There
3
we
weeks
go.
ago again.
The Mask.
This year's the 25th anniversary of the movie.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. And side note, before I forget, how hot was Cameron Diaz in that movie?
Oh my God! It introduced her into the film world. That
Not
was
much.
like her big break.
Pretty much.
Yeah, this came out through Dark Horse Presents #10 in September 1987. Guys, I bought this issue for like $8, not more than a couple months ago.
Oh, wow.
It is super obtainable. So it's already proven to be a hit in film. It just takes one person to go, we need to reboot this, and boom, that comic's taken off like a bottle rocket. So highly recommend picking that one up. Basically, to just break it down, I know most of you know the movie, but in all versions, the story initially revolves around a magical mask, which bestows on its wearer reality-bending powers and an altered appearance, characterized by a large set of teeth and a green head. The mask affects the personality of the wearer by removing all social and moral inhibitions, causing the wearer to become insane. The character was inspired by a combination, and this is great, guys, by a combination of the Joker and Steve Ditko's version of the Creeper, as well as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now, tell me, is there a better combination for insanity than the Joker meshed with the Creeper and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde?
It's actually on that point real quick. As I was like, the movie's pretty fresh in my head. Now, the origin of the mask, at least in the film, is through a god of mischief, and they said his name out loud, Loki.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, we got a great comic book series out of it. We got a great cartoon series out of it. Mm-hmm. I think it was on CBS. We got a great movie, not a second one. We didn't get a great second one. Son of the Mask, not so good. But the first one was phenomenal. Highly recommend it to anybody that hasn't seen the movie, and I recommend the comic book series, which came out through Dark Horse.
Yeah, and I love that 1930s Prohibition-styled look of the Mask movie as well.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, word of advice, don't make sequels to early Jim Carrey movies.
Yeah.
When Harry Met Lloyd, Kevin. When Harry Met Lloyd.
That's true.
Now, my number 7 is going to really reach out to people that are, what is my generation? I'm right before millennials.
I guess you're with us, kind of. You're a Zennial.
Zennial, okay. This is really for the Zennials and for the people that are roughly within 5 years of me, up and down. My number 7 is Turok the Dinosaur Hunter.
Ooh.
Now, Turok debuted in 4-color comics number 596, October/November 1954.
Let's be honest, though. He really first appeared in the Nintendo 64 game.
In 1997 by Acclaim.
Yeah, that's where
Which,
he really took
interestingly
off.
enough, owned at that time Valiant Comics.
Yep, yeah.
Yes, and right now, it was originally through Western Publishing and Dell Comics.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now, Turok, superpowers, is an Olympic-level athlete, master archer, knife fighter, marksman, hunter, tracker, and wilderness survivalist. But coolest of all, a dinosaur hunter!
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've had, Son of Turok. There's a lot of Native American parallels through Turok the Dinosaur Hunter. It's an interesting book. It's a great character. And the exploding arrows in the N64 game.
Yeah, and weren't some of the dinosaurs augmented, too, with, like, cyborg-like parts? So they were, like, cyborg dinosaurs? Some crazy shit going on in that shit series.
If it could happen to a dinosaur, it was in Turok. That's all I'm going to say.
That's true.
Kevin, who's your number 6?
Number 6 is something I know Donald appreciates and loves very much. Archer and Armstrong.
Oh, yeah. Love it.
Armstrong, legendary adventurer, brawler, drinker, womanizer, I'm sure, all that good stuff. One of the 3 immortal brothers, including the Eternal Warrior and Time Walker. He is a kick-ass superhero, and his buddy, Archer, he's a fun guy, little martial artist protege, and they are a subset of the sect known as The Dominion.
Now, I'm quite curious about when did this comic kind of land?
It was back in the early 90s, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, also part of Valiant Comics. Actually, I can tell you right now, Archer Armstrong, number 0, February 1992. Also from the great Jim Shooter, who helped create that company, Valiant. That was one of their opening characters, I believe. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Archer and Armstrong, that would actually be a really good TV series, like on Netflix or on maybe even on Showtime or HBO, in my opinion.
Yep.
You know, it's actually quite interesting. You know, you guys really professed your love for Image Comics, but you know what? We're dropping the name Valiant quite a bit here.
As we should.
We are. We really are.
They deserve a little bit of respect, just like Malibu. We gave Malibu a little bit of love earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm going to say maybe there's a slight bias towards Malibu, but you know what? I don't blame you. I don't blame you because they're still excellent no matter what.
Right.
Absolutely.
My next one is this is number 6. Yeah?
This is your number 6.
My number 6 is The Crow.
Whoa, love the Crow.
Created by James O'Barr, revolving around the character of the same name. The series was originally created by O'Barr for a means of dealing with the death of his girlfriend at the hands of a drunk driver. I don't know how many people know that. Was first published by Caliber Comics in 1989. Became an underground success, and then later, as we all know, was adapted into a 1994 movie of the same name. Now, it's funny that he created the character as a means to dealing with the death of his girlfriend, and then the lead playing the Crow was then murdered, basically, essentially on set. He was killed on set while filming it, and that was what's his face?
Brandon Lee, son of Bruce Lee.
Yeah. So that was a very tragic thing to happen. But the Crow was basically a character that came back from the dead and to avenge his own death, and then later to avenge the death of others. So the Crow was a really like what if kind of Punisher type thing. What if the Punisher died along with his family, and then he was reborn to kill, to become an avenging spirit, like. And I think they tried that at one point in Marvel with the Punisher becoming an angel, like, of death or something, and it did not work at all. People laughed at it.
Yeah, because you're going away from his
roots. Anytime you could do an Elseworlds title, basically, in a way, I know that's DC, but you could do that in that way. But damn, man, you can't just take the essence of a character and totally change it like that.
Nope.
Did not work. But the Crow, definitely on my list, just for the whole essence of the character and what it represents in the indie comic book world. The Crow's a cool superhero. Also, an inspiration for Sting, the wrestler, who essentially just stole it and was like, I'm the Crow now. This is what I do.
And I love how he looked all scary until you opened his mouth and be like, Nash! The big I must say, though, in addition to this here, one of my great memories as a child sharing with my dad is our love for the movie The Crow, and not just the movie, the soundtrack. It's very rare while we're doing one of these podcasts that I strongly recommend a movie, and if you've been under a rock and haven't seen The Crow, this is must watch here. I mean, stylistically, it's beautiful. Brandon Lee does a wonderful job.
And one of my favorite directors from that time period also did one of my favorite movies of all time, was directed by Alex Proyas.
Alex Proyas is a very highly underrated director. Everything he does is kind of great.
Dark City, you gotta watch.
Oh my God, yes. If you haven't seen that, please.
Heck, even iRobot ain't that bad.
Yeah, and honestly, I liked Knowing with Nicolas Cage. Despite Nicolas Cage, I really liked that film.
And this year's the 25th anniversary, if I might add, of The Crow as well.
Oh, yeah. I got my double disc. I got all my interviews with Brandon Lee. That is a great moment in, like I said, that soundtrack. Oh,
awesome.
Okay. Number 6, I'm going to go with Zachary T. Paleozote. Zot. Exclamation point.
Zot.
Wow, okay.
Zot, exclamation point.
I like that.
From Eclipse Comics, created by Scott McCloud. It had a run between 1984 to 1990 of roughly 36 issues. I say roughly, it's exactly 36 issues. I just say roughly so the fact checkers can calm down out there, okay? The Snopes of the comic book world. It was inspired by one of Donald's favorites, Astro Boy. Now, what's interesting about this is a lot of these things have parallels. As I say, a lot of these stories are great because of their parallels. This was a very light-hearted option, a light-hearted read for a time of some really harsh comic books. Frank Miller was starting to seep in. You started to see Punisher was getting his own stories that were obviously very dark. I love it. So this is from an alternate Earth, okay, is where it takes place. This character, he flies with gravity boots, fights villains with a 10-shooter laser gun, and, most importantly, boundless optimism.
You gotta have the boundless optimism.
See, I think this is kind of a fearless thing that Scott McCloud did. I mean, he just kind of went all in. And if you're going to do something like this, especially in that era, you might as well jump in with both feet and go all the way. The villains here are extremely goofy, but they're kind of brilliant because he goes all the way with them. Like Bellows, a former inventor, angry that his environmentally unfriendly inventions are no longer in use. We have Zybox, who is a supercomputer hoping to acquire a soul.
Aww.
And then this is something, for all of you people who are a fan of the Super Mario Brothers movie and us Zennials kind of are, there are the Devos, a cult that uses a de-evolutionary gun.
Yes. Yes. I love that Super Mario Brothers movie. I don't care. Even with John Leguizamo playing an Italian dude.
Well, and we'll keep with the theme of Mario Brothers and Zot. You talk about jumping in with both feet and going all the way with their crazy idea. That was the Mario Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we are getting into the real hefty part of the list here at number 5.
The top 5.
But how about we get a word from our favorite sponsor?
Spiro's Heroes.
The Godfather of comics.
Oh, sorry to interrupt, everyone. Just wanted to mention real quick about a shop in Canoga Park, California called Spiro's Heroes. Elliot, the proprietor of the store, has over 300,000 books in what's called the Temple of Comics. That's Spiro Heroes in Canoga Park. Spiro'sHeroes.com.
And here we are back with our top 5 independent comic. Guys, I'm having a blast, and I can't wait to see where this is going to end up. So, Kevin, why don't you give us your number 5?
My number 5 is a man who has suffered and persevered, suffered and persevered, suffered and persevered.
Sylvester Stallone?
Not quite.
Oh.
Rick Grimes.
Rick Grimes.
Man, imagine this. You wake up in a hospital from a coma, and the world has changed. It's gone to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
You have to meet up and join up with... Oh, actually, before we get to that, one of your best friends does a little something with your wife while you're out.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Puts a baby up in her.
Yes.
Pop!
Yes. Then, that baby, along with your wife, are tragically killed.
Mm-hmm. So the baby shot through the head.
Yes.
Into her heart.
Yes.
Killing her. The TV series did not do it justice.
Well, they wouldn't do that. Oh, no.
They should have.
Too controversial. If it was HBO,
Shoot that baby in the head.
If it was HBO, they would have done it. Then, your sweet little boy gets an eye taken out.
Yeah, well, he kind of deserved it. A little shit.
Then, like, your best friend for, like, 6 months gets his head chopped off.
No, that was
by
brutal.
the governor.
Yeah. You know, and there's a lot of people that are like, Negan, so he's the worst, Negan. He was not the governor. The governor was one mean son of a bitch. In the comic book, he chopped his head off. In the comic book, he raped Michonne.
Chopped off the hand.
In the comic book, he chopped off Rick Grimes' hand, his left hand, I think it was. He was so mean.
Oh, yeah, it was just crazy.
And Kevin, I'm glad you're explaining this with your typical energetic projection voice, because if you did this in a very soft, low voice, you might depress people to the point that they don't want to live anymore.
I know.
It's true. It becomes quite apocalyptic.
I mean, if you went through the adversity that Rick Grimes went through, you may want to kill yourself. I mean, it's just brutal, absolute brutal. And then he has the responsibility and the weight of responsibility he took upon himself to lead this group of survivors from place to place to place to place, to try to find a place where they can just kind of start over again, but have to keep moving all the time. They keep running into evil people like the governor and Negan. And then what's the other one? Like, what's it? They're wearing like those masks now in the comic books.
Oh, they were a while ago. It was this. I don't care, Silence or whatever it was. I can't remember now.
Red Hood, Black Hood, Yellow Hood.
They were just wearing. They were wearing the faces of other people, zombies, to basically blend in, so their smell of their live flesh was covered by the decay of the dead flesh.
Naturally, though, my favorite part of Rick Grimes is that beard. Donald, number 5, please.
Number 5. My number 5 is something that I think everybody has an affinity for, or should. It's Hellboy. Hellboy was a character who first appeared in San Diego Comic-Con Comics number 2, but then later appeared in another book. He was, at that point, he was kind of It was the first full Hellboy appearance in black and white, but his first appearance in a regularly published title and his first color appearance was in X-Men number 21, which I got years ago at a shop in Cranberry, Pennsylvania.
Oh my gosh. I was
So-
just on the phone with a friend yesterday who lives in Cranberry.
Really?
Yes.
Cranberry's delightful. It's like Pittsburgh, only it's not. So, a well-meaning half-demon whose true name is, I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to butcher it. Hellboy was summoned from hell to Earth as a baby on October 5th by a Nazi occultist. Basically, he was discovered by the Allied forces, amongst them Professor Trevor Brutenholm, who formed the United States Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, which Hellboy later joined, and the professor pretty much raised him to instill in him values, this is why I like it. You're summoned by Nazis to destroy most of Earth so Hitler can rule, and they can rule with him as their blunt instrument, but it happens in the wrong way, and the Allied forces get a hold of him and raise him to be a man of morality, even though he's a demon. He's basically a devil, I think that's so cool. He has the right hand of doom, I believe is what it's called, which can pretty much do anything, can hold anything, punch anything, do anything. He's got a sword. He cut his own horns off because he didn't want to be seen as a devil. So he wanted to be seen as more normal. So he cut his horns off. He's got these big chunks in his head where the horns would come out.
See, he should love himself entirely.
So just a really cool character that appeared first in some nonsense, and then later appeared in a pretty cool Dark Horse comic. So I recommend Hellboy for those that don't know him. Also with the movie, there's plenty of movies out there now with Hellboy in it, so you can seek it out.
Ron Perlman will lead the way.
Yeah, and honestly, the visual palette of Hellboy, to me, really encapsulates Dark Horse's look.
Absolutely.
All right, my number 5 is going to be Sarah Pazzini, a.k.a. the Witchblade.
Ah, nice.
Ooh.
All right, this is through Image Comics. First appearance is in Psyblade /Shy, S-H-I, The Battle for Independence, T-S at the end, number 1 in January of 1995. Now, in many ways, when you read through Witchblade, there is kind of a combination of previous Marvel superheroes, if you would, and DC for that matter. What I mean by that is, when she has the Witchblade, there's a lot of things that it can do that are very similar to Green Lantern, namely like creating armor, shooting energy blasts, can also create knives, stabbing weapons, chains, hooks, the like, etc., and things of that nature. Also, too, there's kind of a mystical element too, where she can also fly. Has razor sharp tendrils that can come out. She has increased strength with the Witchblade, jumps extremely high. And what really, I think, makes this the most interesting to me is that she's a detective for the NYPD. And she's actually an exceptional detective for the NYPD. And I really like it. And there was a series that aired on TNT, 2001, 2002. I believe Yancey Butler was the Witchblade. And I don't know. I've always liked the story. It's very neat. Obviously, when the armor gets created, it is armor that shows off a lot of skin.
Yeah.
And I don't know, the Witchblade is one of those people that it's like,
Wasn't there a TV show?
on TNT.
TNT is right.
I have the soundtrack.
You do?
Yeah.
And what's also that's the thing too, when people who struggle out there to be like, oh man, women who have superpowers or women that are stronger than men, the Witchblade is so believable to me. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I personally
one of the things, real quick, Wizard Comics magazine, they had their own credit card at one point in time. So I got their credit card. It was the first credit card I ever got. And instead of getting points used towards money, you got points used towards comic memorabilia and stuff. Well, they closed the program out before I actually cashed in any of my points.
Of course they do.
Of course. Akin to what Malibu did with their Bravada run, their line there that kind of screwed me over with the stamp program. But unlike that, I wrote to Wizard Comics Entertainment and I said, hey, I had all these points. Come on, guys, So they sent me a grab bag of whatever they said they had left in the office that people didn't take or order enough. So they sent me a couple comic books that were just nonsense or whatever. They sent me a giant a Mystery Science Theater 3000 lithograph, oddly enough. And then the other item in there was the Witchblade Comic Companion soundtrack, which was a CD that basically you played along when reading the comic books. That would like help bring out the experience, which I thought was the weirdest damn thing, and I never played it. But I own it.
You see, you can't get these kind of anecdotal stories on any other podcast. Only the Real Short Box can give you stories like this.
Hardcore nerds right here, huh? I wrote a stern letter to Wizard Comics magazine, and I said, "Sir, I had some points, and I needed that. Could I get some stuff for free, sir?"
And for those of you out there who might be like a little put off by us, buffing our chest out, feel free to comment. Just know that we won't care. We're going to continue doing it because we have knowledge in certain areas that I think are very helpful to our listening audience.
Plus, I'm like a puffer fish with my chest. It's kind of amazing. It's a spectacle.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Look at it. Look.
I'm not saying anything till I'm just not going to do it.
My number 4.
We got a format here.
Okay.
What's your number 4?
My number 4 is also a strong woman, sir, with a blade. A woman who's also suffered and has overcome many obstacles and adversity in life.
Melina from Mortal Kombat.
Wait.
You know,
I know who it is.
who is it?
It's Red Sonja.
You know, that wouldn't be a bad choice, actually. But it's not.
It's not.
It is the great, powerful Michonne.
Ooh.
A woman who knows how to use that katana blade.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oftentimes I've heard you say, "I'd like her to use my katana blade."
No, I never use such language,
You're
sir.
gross.
No, I never use
Pervert.
such language.
He's a pervert.
This man's a professional with a job. Let's not expose him like that.
That's right.
He's exposing himself all the time. What are you talking about?
When she debuted in Walking Dead number 19, she debuted in a very awesome way, having 2 zombies attached, well, not really attached to her, but just with her. You knew this lady was no joke.
Nope, no joke.
And she has proven herself to be very useful, essentially being like the right-hand woman, I guess you could say, to Rick Grimes. I know I talked about Tyrese, but you know what? She's been there. Had their little conflicts, of course, here and there, but she has been one tough cookie. She's also endured rape from the governor, endured the death of her lover, Tyrese, had to essentially finish off the zombie version of him, and has been a very solid confidant to Rick Grimes.
Bow and a confidant, and if he threw a party.
But you forgot the and if you threw a...
Yeah, that's true. I forgot that. Oh, well. On to mine.
All right, Donald,
Number
who's your
4.
number 4?
Mine is Joseph Dredd, a.k.a. Judge Dredd.
Sylvester Stallone.
Yes, it's Sylvester Stallone.
Or the guy who plays Bones on Star Trek, the Star Trek movie.
Right.
Oh my gosh,
Right.
what's his name? Help me here. He was in that Viking movie too.
Yeah.
Bones on the Star Trek?
It was, what is his name?
DeForest Kelly.
No,
Oh yeah, well, of course. He's
Carl
original.
Urban.
Thank you, Carl Urban.
Yes. Judge Dredd is a law enforcement officer and judicial officer in the dystopian future of Mega City 1, which covers most of the east coast of North America. He's a street judge who's empowered, and this is great, he's empowered to summarily arrest, convict, sentence, and execute criminals.
And say things like, court's adjourned.
Right. I am the law. In Great Britain, the character of Dredd and his name are sometimes invoked in discussions of police states, authoritarianism, and the rule of law. Judge Dredd made his live-action debut, of course, in '95 with Sylvester Stallone, later played by Carl Urban in 2012. So basically, that's the whole bit of it. It's I'm glad you're having so much fun. He's basically judge, jury, and executioner, which I always thought was awesome.
Oh,
He
yeah.
could just be like, they were, imagine if police officers were like, you're guilty, and they just shoot you. I mean, obviously some of them do, but they shouldn't. And hopefully they'll get their comeuppance for that. But Judge Dredd was just a really cool character that was created a while ago in the I believe it was in the 70s, right? It was like
1977.
Yeah, crazy enough. It's funny how you would know that, Darren. Must be maybe, I don't know. So
Hey, man, I'm
that's
just the Jim Nance of this broadcast.
that's my choice. And Darren, what's your choice?
Man, I just had so many wisecracks about Judge Dredd Prepare 2, but you know, what can I say? With age goes my memory. I'm going to go, in the words of the great John Leguizamo, with Spawn! Al Simmons from Image Comics, created by Todd McFarlane. First appearance in Spawn #1, May
Well.
1992.
Yes, indeed.
Isn't that interesting? We finally have, like a comic book character whose first appearance is in their first friggin' thing. Like, it's not like Spider-Man 1. It's Amazing Fantasy 15.
Not necessarily on this one, though.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean there's debate, but I mean that is his first full like as the character
In full
appearance.
glory.
Right? But he did appear in a issue of what was it? It was Malibu.
Malibu Sun #13.
Yep, that was Spawn's true first appearance, actually.
Okay.
Which is interesting enough, but you know, Spawn #1
And
is
people out there on eBay and other places are stabbing themselves to get themselves a copy of that.
Yeah, instead of Spawn #1, which is worth roughly $15, actually. Now, what's interesting to me is like,
true.
Spawn was an independent comic that took the comic world by storm, at least in my lifetime, like nothing else.
Yep.
You know, and granted, it had its run. It cooled down.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty much done. But, I mean, at its time, my gosh, Spawn was everywhere.
sold more issues than I think any other
Independent.
independent comic.
The first copy actually sold 1.7 million.
You got it.
Yeah.
All right, now he's a Hellspawn, which this is, I don't know, I find Spawn very fascinating. Now, as a religious guy, these people underground scare the hell out of me, for lack of a better term. But I do find this extremely intriguing, you know, this Hellspawn who's superhuman, which is kind of funny because he's not really human. To an extent, is immortal, which means mostly immortal. Has the ability to heal as a skilled tactician. Not that that would matter anyway, because who cares if you can't die? Can teleport, shapeshift, has a necroplasmic energy blast. Say that 4 times fast.
Necroplasmic energy pass.
The ability to have resurrection,
Yep.
which is interesting.
I remember when I got my first resurrection. Awkward, let me tell you. It was in 6th grade. It was Miss Urban's class, and
Sir, I think you misunderstand what that word means.
oh,
Would our
Okay.
engineer be so kind to put in a drum beat there? All right, drum beat effect. Now here we go. Also, when it comes to Spawn, has demonic powers, which range from many different types of powers. Energy and molecular manipulation, which is nasty, and which is what kind of also comes to me is the human side of Spawn. Essentially, is a former Black Ops agent with a moral dilemma. A person who thinks that there are a lot of things that Black Ops agents do that are immoral. And it's kind of interesting how he kind of makes that transition over to the Hellspawn. And personally, though I'm not a huge fan of the film, that's probably what's going to stand up, you know, when people think of Spawn. Although there are great moments
Martin Sheen.
and it's different. I'll say that, which is what I do admire about it.
yeah, it is different. The special effects look like shite now.
Yeah.
But I will thank my parents personally. Mom, Dad, thank you for buying me that Image collection that included Spawn #1 off the Home Shopping Club Network. I appreciate that very much, guys.
Oh man, HSN, that really takes me back. Hey Kevin, why don't you give us your number 3?
My number 3 is your number 4, Al Simmons Spawn.
Oh,
Now, what I'll add to this is, for those who have not seen the HBO TV series from the late 90s, you're missing a treat. That, to me, is one of the most powerful cartoon series, adult cartoon series, of course, I've ever seen. And it was so sad they never really got to finish the series properly. But those 3 seasons I have on DVD. I don't know if you have it on DVD,
Nope.
but it's a good watch. Very dark, very serious, but some really good storylines. And the voices, the voice actors, amazing.
and let's talk about also the inspiration that Todd McFarlane has as an artist on the comic community.
Oh, if we had Jarrett here. Hi, I'm Todd McFarlane. I just want to talk about Jarrett Galante for a little bit.
Because he loves me so much.
He loves me so much. He likes to do impressions of me. I don't think they're very funny, though.
And I'm also a big fan of his artwork on his action figures too.
Yes.
Donald, why don't you go with your number 3?
Oh, buddy. Now, you all knew it was coming. Anybody that knows me knows that he's going to be on my list. He's the golden boy for me. He's one of my favorites. He has no special powers whatsoever. All he can do is fly a goddamn plane, and he can do it well. That would be Airboy.
Airboy.
Isn't that a
Yes.
villain in a Mega Man game?
No, I don't think. But you're close. Airboy debuted in Air Fighter Comics #2 in 1942, guys. He was it was later renamed Airboy Comics in 1945 and ran for 89 issues, if you could believe it. In the early issues, basically it was all about him teaming up with other air fighter pilots to help defeat the Nazis in the occult as well. That was a character named Misery that was a skull kind of character that was used to kind of show the occultist again of the Nazis and stuff like that. So it was a very, very fun parallel that they did like that. Even though Carmine Infantino even did some work on Airboy Comics and stuff. So it's pretty up there. One of the most popular femme fatales actually was Valkyrie.
Oh.
Who's very sexy. Dave Stevens did a cover piece for a promo poster for Airboy Comics that Chuck Dixon wrote and was from Eclipse Comics back in the 80s because they revived it back then, and Chuck Dixon wrote 50 issues of it. And it was a phenomenal series. It actually got me in to comic books that were not DC and Image. I found all 50 issues. I know I've said it before, all 50 issues in a 10-cent box. $5. I got the entire run. I just barreled through it when I went home because I didn't have a lot of comics to read when I was a kid. But then I had $5. I got 50 comics. Imagine that.
Can't
It's
go
like,
wrong there.
blew my mind. I'm like, oh my God, a whole series. I'm going to read this. And I got really into it. I got really into the character. He's just a cool dude. He's got a good moral compass. Imagine Captain America without the powers, but he's a hell of a pilot. And he's got a woman that is named Valkyrie that's a Nazi that defects being a Nazi because she falls in love with him. So we got a little Romeo and Juliet action on the side as well. Just a great series, phenomenal story. Highly recommend it, especially the 80s run with Eclipse. You can pick them up, 50 cents an issue at most probably. So I highly recommend it. And that's my number 3.
But she has a full defection, not like Elsa in Last Crusade, Indiana Jones, where she just keeps bouncing back and forth. Nazi, not Nazi, Nazi, not Nazi.
Exactly, yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
My number 3 is going to be Judge Joseph Dredd, written by John Wagner, IPC Media, currently now known as Rebellion Developments. First appearance in 2080, number 2, March 5th, 1977. Obviously, Donald mentioned the film earlier with Sylvester Stallone. I still haven't finished the Carl Urban film. I'll get around to it, I'm sure. And the thing is, too, there's some interesting stuff about that movie. First of all, it's one of the few movies I've ever seen Diane Lane with clothes on. And do you notice also, too, that Sylvester Stallone, who also is partially in charge of making the career of Sandra Bullock in Demolition Man and then Diane Lane now in Judge Dredd, you know what's interesting to me? Don't their uniforms look almost the same? Like same color hair, same kind of tight pants, same kind of,
That's true.
you know. I just find that very interesting. I have a friend who worked on Demolition Man. And
Futuristic movies.
it's just kind of crazy. Yeah, in Hollywood, they keep promising us these awesome, terrible futures, and it's not happening. But,
No.
you know, maybe they'll stick with it.
Although Idiocracy is pretty close.
I agree.
Hey, man, I water with Brondo. Anyway, so here's the thing that Donald mentioned. Everything, I'm just going to add what kind of makes him a cool superhero to me are his gadgets. The Lawgiver, which is his gun that is his personal palm print. It has 6 different types of ammunition, which are awesome. And then, of course, his motorcycle, known as the Lawmaster, is equipped with a machine gun, a laser cannon. Yes, the future. We have laser cannons. And it is also full artificial intelligence and can respond to his commands.
It also hovers too, right? Flies.
Absolutely.
essentially.
Yeah. No, so that's what I'd like to add to that. On top of the fact, I don't know, there's just something. It's kind of cool, but it's a bizarre comic at the same time. Kevin, let's go to the heavy hitters here. We're on number 2.
My number 2 is a righteous man, a skilled master of martial arts. His name is Hamato Yoshi, also known as Master Splinter.
Yes. Yes. The Amato Yoshi to my Irokusaki.
Yes, exactly.
But no Usagi Ujimbo.
No.
Strangely enough, that was mentioned by one of the guys at the shop, at the comic shop we go to, Spiro's Heroes, who, is kind enough to be one of our sponsors here. Somebody at the shop mentioned that they liked Usagi Yojimbo, which I thought was pretty cool.
Now, Master Splinter, you can't go wrong. How awesome is that rat? That's the one rat I wouldn't mind hanging out with.
Right.
A wise
You dirty rat.
You dirty rat. But he ain't dirty. He's a clean rat.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one who Shredder wish he could just get rid of, but he can't.
Nope. Just like a rat. Keeps escaping.
Exactly.
All right. Well, my number 2 is the Tick.
The Tick?
The Tick. And this was a tough one for me, guys, because everybody who knows me knows I love the Tick. The Tick is awesome. The Tick, we never quite figure out if the Tick is insane or not. We know that the Tick is Neil invulnerable. So basically, you can't kill him. You can't blow him up. You can't stab him. You can't shoot him. You can't do anything. You can't hurt him.
And you can't avoid laughing at his jokes.
And he's funny and he's crazy. He just doesn't connect with reality. And he has a battle cry, which is what helped me create my production company name, Rumble Spoon Productions. His battle cry is Spoon. So I thought that was funny. The name came from the battle cry and then fighting being a rumble. So I was like, okay, Rumble Spoon. That's how I created it. Came out in 1986. Was his first appearance. Was New England Comics newsletter. He was basically he was like their mascot for their newsletter for the comic book shop there in New England Comics. And real first appearance was in the Tick #1, which was limited in the amount that they produced, very limited. So if you could find one of those for a reasonable price, a couple $100, you probably should pick it up. Because the Amazon series is still going. It got picked up for a second season. And they'll probably bring the cartoon back at some point. And the comic book's been going ever since '86, so it's been killing it. I love the Tick. I love Arthur. I love some of the crazy villains that they have. The Midnight Bomber, the bomber that bombs at midnight, baby. Yeah, baby, yeah. And then there's all kinds of crazy superheroes. There's this sea urchin. And there's the Chameleon. There's American Maid, who they call Captain Liberty, I believe, in the television series. But in the comics, it's American Maid. Mm-hmm. And there's Batman in the TV series, but in the comics, it's Deflator Mouse. So it's just all kinds of fun madcap nonsense. I highly recommend it. That's my number 2.
Now, I heard they're going to also add a villain to that show just to kill him. I think the villain's name is going to be Jaime Reyes.
I hope so.
All right, my number 2. You see, this is why you got to listen to us in a row, guys, because what happens is we foreshadow things that are coming. Let's get to those serials. My number 2 is Dick Tracy.
Oh.
Comic strip created by Chester Gould on my birthday, October 14th, but in 1931. It debuted in the Detroit Mirror, which actually went under the year after. It was a tabloid newspaper, sort of like the National Enquirer.
Wow.
What I really dig about Dick Tracy is that he's a straight-laced guy in basically an over-the-top world of very distorted villains.
Prune face.
Itchy. Big Boy Caprice, who looks distinctively like one Al Capone. We also have people like Mumbles. Who Mumbles? 88 Keys, the piano player. I mean, it's just, and like I said, Tracy, it's just, the yellow trench coat is perfect for him, but he's so straight-laced, and he is the one normal thing in a world full of crazy people. And I'm sorry, if you're a kid in 1931, the blank had to freak you out.
He had an Apple Watch before there was an Apple Watch.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
And what's funny is we hired a person to be our videographer for our wedding. His name is Dan Ketchum. And I said, Katie, is he related to Sam Ketchum? Dick Tracy's partner? Yeah, we can go there. Yeah. All right. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. We are going to do our number 1 in the independent comic world. Kevin, who is numero uno?
My numero uno. There can be no doubt. My boys, Raphael, Michelangelo, Leonardo, and Donatello, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Heroes and a half shell.
Turtle power.
I'm going to just combine with you.
Yes.
That's my number 1 as well.
Yes.
Okay.
So Kevin and I will just do this real quick. Anybody knows who the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are. If you don't, shame on you.
You got problems.
You come over, I slap your face.
You might live in Syria.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty probably.
They were created by Mirage Studios in 1984 by Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird.
If you have a first print, please be so kind to send it to our P.O. box.
Drop it off, please. Yes, we would very much appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, who was your favorite Ninja Turtle, Kevin?
Donatello, because I always loved the brains of the operation.
Mine too.
And that bow stick, you could do a lot of damage with that
You could
thing.
do surprisingly a lot of damage.
And if you played the game back in the 1990s on Nintendo,
He was the best one.
that was the best weapon.
He had the biggest reach.
That's right.
The worst one, Raphael.
Yeah, because he had the shortest reach,
He
of
had the
course.
short range, blah, 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 blah. He should have thrown him and they come back. Like, I don't know. I don't think he ever did that, did he?
I don't
he
think
just
so. I don't think they were boomerangs. It was just
little
stab,
stabby, little
stab.
stabby.
Yeah,
He should have
stab,
just
stab,
thrown
stab.
him,
Stab,
and
stab,
then
stab.
they come back to him.
Did
I
he
don't
even ever stab anyone with those size?
know. In the movies? Yes, I think no. Yes, no. Did
You
he?
gotta think about it.
I don't know.
In the comic books, I have no
No,
idea.
I think he used the blunt end. He threw him at people and used the blunt end, which is why I always thought
And
he should throw him.
Are you a Donatello person as well? Is that your
Oh
favorite?
yeah, absolutely.
See, I'm a Leonardo guy.
Leonardo's
admire-
my second. He's my
admire the
number two.
leadership, and I love the color
Mikey's
blue.
my number 2.
Oh, he's right. He's number 2.
Yeah, and Raphael would actually be my number 2 if it was Raphael from the cartoon, because I always like him because he was funny. He had the wisecracks.
Yeah, he's sarcastic.
Yeah, sarcastic as a mother. But Michelangelo was always a party dude. We know that. He loves pizza too, more than any of them. So yeah, Ninja Turtles. That's Kevin and ours number 1.
Now, my number 1, I have been waiting for an update to this movie desperately. This is no question for me, my absolute favorite in the independent world, and that is Flash Gordon.
Okay, that's a good one.
Through King Features Syndicate, created by Alex Raymond, January 7th, 1934 is when the comic strip debuted. Basically, Flash Gordon is a handsome polo player and Yale graduate. He, with Dale Arden and Hans Zarkov, are flying to outer space to the planet Mongo. The strip was heavily inspired by Buck Rogers, a very famous serial, and ran daily from 1934 until 1992, and on Sundays until 2003. I just love this world that's created, and I love the fact that it seems like, there's no limit to what you can do in outer space. And there's something very interesting to me about Flash Gordon. Ming the Merciless, of course, is one of the coolest looking villains there is. There's just so many neat adventures. And as much as I kind of despise the movie that Queen did the soundtrack
Come on,
for,
that theme song. You can't get that.
there
thing
are
dead.
some great scenes, and they did capture moments in it that made me happy about Flash Gordon thing. And obviously, when I'm watching one of my favorite movies, Seabiscuit, I love that his child is looking forward to the future while reading a Flash Gordon novel. This is the kind of stuff like that. I'm particularly a big fan of Flash Gordon. Flash Gordon, the color, the way they use color, especially purple. I mean, I'm down. Anybody who wants to make this, and I've heard interest from George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, you name it. Flash Gordon for me all the way.
Well, with
right.
that is our top 10 independent comic book superheroes.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, guys. Where can they find us?
YouTube,
Instagram,
Facebook.
not MySpace, iTunes,
Yeah.
And potentially LinkedIn.
Potentially.
And we're on
LinkedIn.
Twitter too, by the way, so you can check us out on Twitter as well. Yeah, with that, thank you for coming out. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you
At the comic shop.
This has been The Real Short Box. We'll see you at the comic shop. Thanks for listening.